Good afternoon. The March 31st, 2026 work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Campbell? Here. Mr. Trent? Mr. Thomas?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Rendell, Dr. Rendell, can you speak to the board about the items on the agenda for today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 4 presentations on the agenda for today. The first presentation will be on some options for the 27-28 school calendar, instructional calendar. This is for 2027-2028. For any members of the audience viewing this, Mr. Raymer and Mr. Pruitt are going to present some options, some variations, some possibilities for the 27-28 calendar. The board did ask, can we start doing like kind of a 2-year look ahead? So this is not the upcoming instructional calendar that has been approved by the board. This is for 27-28 and just looking at some options. The next presentation is on school choice scholarships update. So we have the ability to charge families who are taking a scholarship or a voucher for classes and for some of our programs. So Mrs. Harris and Dr. Mayer are going to give us a presentation on that. Then the third presentation will also be Mrs. Harris and Dr. Mayer, and they'll be talking about our before and after school program, some changes that we're recommending for next year. And then the fourth and final presentation will be Deputy Superintendent Sue Han and her team about the strategic facilities plan.
All right. Our first presentation will be on the school year 2027-2028 calendar options. Will be presented by Mr. Raymer and Mr. Pruitt. Here we go.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, and thank you to the board and Dr. Rendell for allowing us the opportunity to discuss future calendar planning. Today's presentation is designed to review draft calendar options for the 2027-2028 school year that best support our students, staff, families, and stakeholders. Our focus will be on presenting these options, highlighting their key features, and gathering your feedback to help guide next steps. We will begin with a review of the state requirements that shape all of our calendars, which will ground our discussion in the parameters we are required to meet. We will also connect these options to prior board initiatives and requests that were discussed as we developed and finalized the 2026-2027 calendar. We will identify where those initiatives could be reflected and where there may be opportunities for further alignment. State statute and state board rule govern our calendars and state that we must have 180 days or equivalent hours throughout the school year. Florida Administrative Code identifies those hours as 720 instructional hours K through 3 and 900 instructional hours in 4 through 12. Those are for FEFP, FTE purposes to receive full funding for students. Our minutes that we must have for high school credit are 4,050 for one semester or 67.5 hours, or 8,100 minutes and 135 hours for full credit. So we utilize those state statutes and the state board rule to help govern how we create the calendar, what must be inside of the calendar in order for students to not only earn high school credit, but for the district to receive full FEFP, FTE for students. The board initiatives that were discussed during the 2026-2027 development and finalization of the calendar were items such as increased instructional time, reducing or eliminating the need for hurricane makeup days, maintaining the week-long Thanksgiving break, which I'm excited to say we've been able to accomplish over the past few years, end first semester prior to winter break, possibly election day as a non-school day, depending on the year and the elections that are taking place, more professional learning opportunities embedded for staff, a potential fall break, and to complete the school year prior to Memorial Day. Those were the board initiatives and requests that were discussed as we went through the 2026-2027 calendar options. So to start the discussion, we want to look at the first calendar that was provided, and that is the 2027-2028 draft calendar that would have early release as it currently stands in our BFT contract. So in that calendar, we would have early release every Friday outside of the first Friday of the school year. We would continue to have Labor Day off. We'd have a professional learning day For our staff in September, that's our PM1 day, that's on September 27th. We continue to have the work day that is embedded in the contract in between first and second 9 weeks. Veterans Day would continue to be on the date in which Veterans Day is celebrated. Thanksgiving break would continue to be a week long, and we would go into winter break after 12/17, starting on 12/20, which would continue to be 10 days as per our policy that states no less than 10 days for winter break. That would put us at 85 days leading into winter break, which would then mean that we would have to come back second after winter break and continue first semester. So in this calendar, first semester continues on January 3rd and then ends on 1/7/2028 to give us a full 90 days in first semester. Second semester would start on January 10th and continue throughout the remainder of the school year with Martin Luther King Jr. Day on 1/17. Our contract professional learning day in February. Our teacher work day between third 9 weeks and fourth 9 weeks on 3/17, leading in the spring break, which would start on 3/20. We are excited to announce that we have communicated with Eastern Florida State College, and we have aligned that spring break, and that is their tentative spring break week also for 27-28. So we believe that that's going to remain where it is. We continue through with a 4/14 student-teacher holiday. And then from there, we would go through the remainder of the school year, finishing with 90 days in second semester for a total of 180 days for the school year. And teachers would finish the day after the early release exams as their post-planning day. At the bottom of the calendar, it breaks down semester 1 days, and it breaks down semester 1 minutes, along with semester 2 days and semester 2 minutes. So the important part here is that we are meeting our FTE requirements. In addition to that, we are meeting the requirements of 180 days or equivalent and the 40/50 for the high school credit. So the very last line tells you that we would have in both semesters 170 minutes to exceed the requirements that are set forth by the state, which would give us approximately 3.5 days over what is necessary to meet those requirements. Typically in a year, first semester, we would use those 3.5 days if we had a hurricane and we didn't have to make up days. So essentially we would look at this as if we missed 3.5 or less days for a hurricane, we wouldn't have to make up any minutes in first semester. We would have enough to cover them. It would go, second semester would mirror first semester, so we'd be looking at that 3.5 days for each semester for a total of 7 days for the school year that we would be, I will say in excess, but over the requirements set forth by the state. So one of the things that we would look at here is that we would have some availability, but we would have limited options in order to meet some of the initiatives that were set forth and suggestions or requests by the board. For example, in this calendar, we would not be able to finish first semester prior to winter break. It wouldn't be feasible because we wouldn't have the minutes in order to do so. We would be able to do something like add in a day for election day. We would be able to potentially, do something smaller scale for a fall break. But in reality, we'd be very limited in this calendar to do some of the initiatives that we talked about, adding professional learning days, et cetera. And this would mirror where we currently stand in 25, 26, and 26, 27 with regards to instructional time in the classroom. We usually fall somewhere between 3 and 4 days each semester, depending on how many days are in each semester. This year, we're currently operating on an 89-91 and not a 90-90. With that calendar, like I said, we would have some options to meet the requests and initiatives that the board has discussed with us during the 26-27 development, but we would be limited in our opportunities to do things different within the calendar. The second calendar that was provided to you is a monthly early release. So when we look at the calendar as a whole, where do we not get as many minutes as we would on a normal school day? And that's obviously our Fridays. So we operate at the high school level on a 49-39. So we have 49 minutes Monday through Thursday in all of our periods or more, and we have 39 on Fridays or more. So when you look at this calendar, all the dates that we discussed on the first one mirror one another inside of this calendar. What we want to look at is the bottom part, which is where the minutes start changing, because instead of having early release every Friday, early release would be on the last Friday of each month. So we'd have one a month, last Friday of every month. So when you look at the semester 1 and semester 2, they're both 90 days. They both have 82 full days. They both have 8 early release days. Where you get a difference is the total number of minutes, which is 280 more than what is required by the state. And on the first calendar, it was 170. So it's a 110-minute difference, which is equivalent to approximately 5.5 days, maybe 5.7, depending on how we look at it. So you now have 5.5 days where more of the initiatives and more of the suggestions or more of the requests could be met. For example, since we have 5 days of first semester after winter break, we could essentially end prior to winter break in this calendar. We would have those 5 days already built in with a half day to a 0.7 more. Obviously, we would have to have some different discussions there for potential hurricane makeup days going into second semester, et cetera. But this calendar would provide us with more flexibility where we could make things work like the election day. We could make the fall break. We could look at ending first semester prior to winter break. It would increase instructional minutes in the classroom because now early release wouldn't be every Friday. So some of the suggestions and requests and initiatives, more of them would be able to be met in a calendar such as this second one, which would have early release on the last Friday of every month. The last potential calendar that we're going to present today is if we were to not have early release embedded in the calendar at all. So this would be with no early release. So every school day would be a traditional day, which means that we would have 49 or more minutes in all of our secondary class periods every day. All of the dates are going to stay the same, right, with regards to Veterans Day, Labor Day, winter break, spring break, etc. Semester 1 and semester 2 in this calendar would remain at 90 days. So 87 full days and then 3 exam days. So our 3 exam days would still be early release days, but 87 of the days would be traditional days. This would yield us 4,380 minutes, so 330 more minutes than state requirements, and roughly give us 6.5 to 7 days that we would be able to do more of the suggestions, requests, and initiatives with. For example, this would clear first semester to end at winter break and still provide us with approximately 2 days for hurricane, we did not have to make up hurricane days, et cetera, before we'd have to go into second semester. Obviously increases instructional time. When we talk about items like election day that we talked about, when we talk about completing the school year before Memorial Day, all of these calendars could do that or will do that. Fall break, professional learning opportunities. It would also give us the potential opportunity to reduce from a 180-day school year to the equivalent, which means we would be able to go down to 179 or 178. Some districts have moved in that direction. We spoke to one over the summer that has moved in that direction for a variety of reasons. Some of it was to embed professional learning days into the school year. But we would have the minutes in order to do something unique like that. So 178 days of students and then 2 more days of professional learning would be an example of something that we could do inside of a calendar that provided us with more minutes as opposed to where we currently stand, where you get about 3.5 days each semester. So we're really using those and bracing against hurricane makeup days. That's really what we have buffered right now. The calendars with early release on the last Friday or no early release not only give us that buffer, but they also give us the option to move in other directions to meet the initiative, suggestions, or requests that were made during the development of the 26-27 calendar. So those are the 3 calendars that we prepared for you. In the folder, you also have the calendar in month format as opposed to by day, and then what the modified calendar would look like as it stands right now for 27-28. That would obviously mirror as we move forward with any type of movement in regards to early release Fridays. So I do want to obviously thank you guys again for the option to present 3 different calendars for 27-28. Obviously, we appreciate your time and the consideration and the thoughtful opportunity to guide us as we work to develop what 27-28 calendars could look like. Once again, best support our students, staff, and community. We do appreciate any feedback that you are able to provide us with today, as that will shape the direction that we move forward. And I do want to keep in mind that as we talk about early release Fridays, I want to note that any changes would need to be negotiated. That is part of the contract. So this isn't something that we could decide today and move forward with. It would have to be part of negotiations with our union. I will throw out a secondary option, not to confuse anybody, but if you were to look at districts that surround Brevard, we do have one of the shorter school days. So we currently operate at 6.5 for our elementary schools, 8 to 2:30, and then we operate at 6:45 for our secondary schools, 8:45 to 3:30 like high schools. Some of our surrounding counties operate on 7-hour school days, operate on 6-hour and 57-minute school days. Some operate more than that. If we were to extend the school day, which is an option, by 15 minutes, we could pick up at least 2 minutes per period at the secondary level, which also would provide us some flexibility to meet the district the board requests, initiatives, or suggestions. So I did want to put that as a secondary option. For example, Orange, Osceola, Indian River, Volusia, and Seminole, all of our surrounding counties have a longer school day. Depends on level, but at least at the secondary high school level, they have a longer school day, which is where that 40-50 comes in. Not too difficult to meet the 720 K3 FTE requirement or the 900 requirement. So that's just something to keep in mind as we move forward.
Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, a couple questions. On the years we have a hurricane, do we have an average of how many days we normally lose to storms?
I don't think we've done an analysis of the average. If I was to say, I would really bank it at like 1 to 3 would probably be somewhere in that average. Typically, some of our days have obviously been for facilities, maintenance, repairs, but not necessarily for full closures to reduce some things, as some of our districts, unfortunately, in Florida have been hit a little bit harder.
I like the longer we've had in the last few years, just 3.
Yeah, I think if you want to look for an average, it's 2.
Yeah.
Because we've had 2 to 3, and then one year we just had 1. So,
I know it always depends on the severity of the storm. I was just curious.
And this year, none.
Yeah, let's
And when
keep it
it
that way. I don't recall when the hours changed. Have we always been shorter than the other surrounding districts, or is that something that we've changed in recent years?
For as long as I can remember, like we've been operating as a principal and in this role, and prior to that, off of what I would call a very similar bell schedule. I know some districts have recently sent out a survey to their stakeholders, but it was more about start and end time than it was about length of the school day. It was, do we want to start, some of our high schools in surrounding areas start 7 a.m., 7:15, so it was more about, do we want to shift that start time? As opposed to, do we want to extend the school day? We just know by looking at some of the uniform schedules and calendars that are in districts that surround us, that we are probably 10 to 15 minutes shorter than the county, that surround Brevard.
Is there anything that indicates that academic performance is better or worse with a shortened school day?
I don't think there's any reliable statistical evidence, because some of those districts have a longer day but don't have the same academic performance we do. Some have a longer day and do have a higher academic performance, but I wouldn't necessarily tie it to instructional minutes. I mean, we're looking at a variation of 1 to 2 minutes per class period if you're looking at secondary. So,
Yeah, thank you. My only comment is that I know it's my understanding when we have a hurricane makeup day that costs the district extra money that we weren't planning on necessarily. So I think incorporating either option 2 or 3 would give us a little extra buffer to help make sure that we're not incurring any extra costs that we may not otherwise, have to plan for.
Yeah, and 2 years ago, we did start building a hurricane makeup plan that we could make sure our stakeholders had and staff had, and obviously families. where if we miss 2 days, it's built into the calendar. If we miss a third day, we pull it from here. Fourth day, we pull it from here, trying to protect our professional learning opportunities while at the same time supporting all the requirements we have to meet and student learning outcomes. So while in a lengthened school day, if it's 1 or 2 minutes, but if we push that out over the entire year, for example, in our current calendar, we'd have 71 full days for 27, 28 in that original calendar I presented. 1 minute is 71 more minutes, plus then you get another minute in early release. So the 90 gives you 90, which is its own right is another day and a half that is built in just by the minute that we would add. If you add 2 minutes, obviously that continues to grow. And that is part of the reason why some of our surrounding counties that operate on a 50-minute period, when we make up some hurricane days, some of our surrounding counties don't make up those same days.
Well, I definitely love to see us end the first semester at holiday break and, or winter break. And if there's a way to change the length in the day to build in those extra days, would be all for exploring that.
Ms. Campbell?
All right. First of all, thanks for doing this work, and thank you for mentioning the 7-hour school day, because I know my experience of every school I've ever attended or taught in, previous to moving to Brevard, it's always a 7-hour day. Even I can remember as a little kid, it was either 8:30 to 3:30, 9 to 4, or 8 to 3. It's always a 7-hour day. So it does make a difference. And when I've looked before and we've talked about the early release, that was one of the things that stuck out to me. I'm going to give you things that I would, be more positive about, neutral about, and then not necessarily excited about. So instructional time and hurricane makeup, I think are, especially instructional timers. So whatever we do to use these days, I want to make sure we're still taking advantage of the additional instructional time, because I'm actually looking forward to this year, even though it was only 15 minutes a week, seeing, we won't ever know exactly what it is that helps us increase our scores, because it's a combination of lots of things, but getting that extra instructional time has the opportunity to pay off. And I don't want us to sacrifice too much of those extra minutes to just have holidays and things like that, because the extra instructional time is critical, as well as the hurricane makeup. So want to keep the Thanksgiving break. The people have spoken, and we've been very successful with that since the first year the board did it in 21, I think. And then more PD, always excited about that. One thing that consistently through the years that people have asked for is a Memorial Day. I think that's when we can do that on the years that Memorial Day falls early, if we can use that. And it's hard I think we need to continue. I know you guys are thinking about it, that it's still going to be a year-to-year thing, right? Because sometimes Memorial Day doesn't play a factor because it's the 31st or it's somewhere and we don't, but when it's early, that's when it's the years that it's problematic. So in those years, I think it would be helpful. The things I'm kind of neutral on, I don't really care so much about is, I don't care as much about ending the first semester before Christmas, because we've usually been able to work around that. And the election day off. For example, in this calendar, it won't really matter.
Yep.
But one thing we should be cognizant of as we move forward past this year, like in 2028, when it will be a bigger, because hardly anybody in our county does odd year elections. There are a few, but not enough to make a countywide holiday. But in 2028, depending on what Congress does, if they do any kind of elimination or shortening of early voting, there's some Supreme Court decisions going on. I don't know how much you guys pay attention to that kind of news. If any of that goes away, election day itself becomes more important. Long lines, any kind of limiting where you have to get it on certain days could potentially be a factor in 2028. 29, that may be a really important year, depending on what Congress and the Supreme Court do in making sure that we have that day off. So that would be, I would push that up. But for like this calendar and years, that doesn't matter. That's low priority to me. The one thing I'm really kind of down on is the fall break idea. Since we're getting this whole week off of Thanksgiving and we have a day off, well, for students in September, we have a day off for students in October. To me, the fall break doesn't make as much sense because we're already getting a couple of 3-day weekends in addition to wherever Veterans Day falls and wherever Labor Day falls. So I don't really see the purpose of adding fall break. I think those other things I'd actually go for finishing first semester before Christmas before I want to take a fall break, because we're so limited in that fall semester. So that's kind of where I am on the ups, downs, and the neutrals. It's going to be year to year, but I think it's at least worth pursuing with the union what it might look like. We say PD days, but sometimes those days, principals work really hard to create space for their teachers to work together to do collaborative planning during the day. Some of those, if we can, this is maybe getting into the specifics of it, but it could be PD or designated collaborative planning time, where it's you are required to do this. This isn't a work from home day, but we're going to put in this time that teachers say they don't have enough of, for those days, if that's what we end up doing. But those are my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Trent?
Guys, thanks a lot for this work. This is a lot, and knowing that you're putting a lot of work into this, and we're not going to use most of it. These are all options, but I'll echo some of the same. I'll start with the neutral part is the fall break, because if we can get everything else we want in there, that's fine. I do believe as a teacher and a parent, finishing before Christmas break I think that's a big deal. I think it's good for planning as a classroom teacher too, because we know how minds shut down, in just a couple weeks. So to make best use of our time, it's finishing it before Christmas break would be wonderful. So that'd be good. The Thanksgiving break, like you said, that's great. Let's keep that. And finishing in before Memorial Day is perfect as well. I think we need to keep those. Thank you for doing the options of if we limit the early release days. It really shows the amount of minutes that we can get back as teachers. It's extremely important. So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation for us moving forward. But I'm all for longer class periods in less days. I'd love to have those kids in there. Even if it's 2 minutes a day, that matters. Especially if it's 5 days a week. It's a big deal. I hear way too many times students completely dismissing Fridays. I have kids in my house, and can I take Friday off? Why? Well, we don't do anything, and it's not. It's a kid. I know I'm getting it from my child, and but if it's not used properly, it's really a 3-day weekend in some students' minds every week. So if we can get back in, Monday through Friday routine, and I don't care if we do longer days. I think that's great too. I'm used to longer days as well teaching, so I think you kind of know where I'm headed in all of those. So I appreciate all the hard work, and we support you.
I don't necessarily think we should go back to 7-hour days.
I know that. I know.
Why not?
It's some combination of that. It's at least it's good to explore and to show those options there. Seeing what other counties are doing around us and the advantages of having that. So, in negotiations.
No, 7-hour days, not bad.
Yeah.
So do you guys know if there's any statistics showing that early release day increases achievement? Is there anything anywhere that shows that? I looked, I couldn't find it. Have you guys ever seen that would indicate higher achievement scores in any way? Just being as a former teacher, and I think Mr. Trent touched on it, the early release days that we had when I was teaching, which was not set up this way, it was difficult to get on a schedule because now all of a sudden your normal class, which is 4 days, you have your bell ringer, you have your lecture, you have all these things that now is changed up a little bit. And sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But I do think that we could deliver stronger academics if we had a full day on Friday. I really do. I've always felt that way. The reason we moved to this, as everybody knows, is that we could not give the raises that we wanted to during that time. So we gave them the time off instead. Yep. And the issue that we have now is that I think it's time to really look at that early release day as an option. There is other things where you can move to, 6 out of 7 or 6 days instead of 7 periods, all that other stuff. But I really feel strongly about looking at getting rid of the early release days. I feel very strongly about increasing the time period that students are inside the classes, just because it gives us the opportunities that we're at. I did look. 2029, it's May 28th. 2028, it's May 28th on 29 and 28. May 27th on 2030. May 26th on 2031. May 31st on 2032. So the next, that's the next time that we really have to deal with a shortened time would be 2031, where the 26th is. So that's just, it's not like it's the end of the world for at least, I don't know, 3 or 4 years that we've got to deal with. So I feel confident, though, that increasing the achievement days, I taught block scheduling. And when I did, I felt very confident that I was able to deliver more instructions just based on the fact that I could carve out more time and do it. And we're not even talking about that much time. We're talking about a slim, but I would be in favor, and I may not have the majority here, of moving to a 7-hour day just so that we could put more time in and more, it gives us a lot more options to play with. I appreciate everybody in the work that you guys did. We had asked you guys to come forward with it because a lot of other school districts go on 2-year schedules. And I think that allowing our families to know that there's a 2-year schedule would help them. And I think also preparing this ahead of time so we're not like coming out and trying to, make these decisions in a rash decision making at the beginning of the year or the normal time that we do it, it would be helpful so that we can kind of plan out. So thank you so much. Do you guys need any other direction from us?
No, I want to make sure that all stakeholders are aware that these are draft options. So some of the dates that were put out there, please don't go out and start planning any long future vacations. I do appreciate the feedback on the initiatives and suggestions that were brought forth during the 26-27 planning. I was not trying to prioritize any of those, like fall break, et cetera. It was just making sure that I tried to capture and we tried to capture as many of the suggestions and asks that we were asked of. I think that when we look at prioritizing, it was instructional time. Obviously, we're always going to try to reduce or eliminate hurricane makeup days. We're going to prioritize, obviously, Thanksgiving break, as the stakeholders have spoke on that. Finishing prior to winter break seems pretty consistent. I know Ms. Campbell wasn't as high on your list, but it was there. Obviously, Election Day, as we've talked to Dr. Rendell prior to this, is going to be a year-to-year type of decision-making or based on some rulings or legislation that might come through, having to change that. For example, the year that we discussed, not necessarily as important as, or I won't say important as, something we'd have to pursue as much as maybe future years. Professional learning opportunities as a priority, not really a priority is in doing anything with a fall break, and then completing the school year before Memorial Day as another priority. And I just want to point out the start date for the school year by the state is August 10th. So that's whenever we start the school year, whether that's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's the first day we're allowed to start the traditional school year. So I just want to make sure that even if Memorial Day does shift on us, we can't shift the start date of the school year up to match that. We're pigeonholed into the 10th of August.
You have to start exactly on that day, or could you start on the 11th if you have enough days to
So
make
the
it a
state
Monday?
statute reads that you
Can't
can
start
start no
before-
earlier than
yeah.
August 10th.
Yep, that's what I thought.
So
If
obviously,
we had extra days, we wouldn't be able to be cornholed where we have to come in on a
Right.
Friday and then
100%.
start out the next
yeah.
week.
So
Sometimes people like starting
Yes.
I know.
yeah, we
Have kids for one day before you get
we could make the decision. The statute is we just can't start before August 10th.
Right. These are all great options. I think our calendar is improving every year, and I appreciate you. Does anybody else have anything to say before we get started?
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to summarize to make sure we
Yes, sir.
understand what the direction is.
Mhm.
So the first calendar that was presented to you doesn't require any changes to the contract. What I heard from the board is they'd like us to explore increasing minutes, either by eliminating some of the early release days or all of the early release days, or increasing the school day. So that's going to require negotiations. So the direction of the board is, as we work on the 27-28 calendar, we might need to work on some of those changes.
Mhm.
Okay. I want to circle back to Mr. Raymer's point about August 10th being the start date. Finishing Memorial Day, looking at the date of Memorial Day is the finish, but the start is actually really more important. So if you look at the 27-28 calendar, August 10th is a Tuesday. So the next year it'll be a Wednesday and then a Thursday. So finishing first semester before Christmas break will get more challenging unless we increase minutes.
Yeah.
So, we won't be able to do, in fact, in the first version, where we don't increase minutes, we don't finish before Christmas break. So as the next 3 or 4 years go, unless we increase minutes, we will never be able to finish before Christmas break. So, that's something to think about, is increasing the minutes available each semester means we can finish before Christmas break almost every year.
The start time for after Christmas was January 3rd. I was one of the biggest, pre you guys, I was one of the biggest proponents for let's start earlier, because one couple years we didn't come back to like the 9th or the 10th. It was crazy, and families, children who don't have access to food. I mean, it's a really long break. It was almost 3 full weeks. But the 3rd is actually the earliest we've come back in like my memory. So I would also suggest that we consider maybe, because I don't know if that's too early, but maybe the ramifications of pushing that out one day, just because it seems like the 3rd is really quick for what we've normally done. Maybe it's not a big deal to anybody, and I won't have kids in a school, so it doesn't matter to me, but but the 3rd seems a little bit early, because I don't know when is the last time we've ever come back before the 4th.
Yeah, correct. And as we work on this 27, 28 calendar, we'll take some of those things into account. For example, in the coming school year, staff come back on Monday, but students don't come back till the Tuesday. And remember, food services and transportation had asked for that, so they can make sure the kitchens are stocked and ready to go, and we make sure everything's working when you flip the breakers on, so that in this 27, 28 calendar, we may very well do that as well. The Monday, January 3rd might end up being a work day, and then, we steal a day later from that semester. Mr. Chair, while we're still talking about the count, are you good?
Yeah, I was just going to say that was facilities and operations had asked for that day, so that is something that we have already considered. We do want to always keep in mind that if you do that, it shifts everything one more day, which then puts us right up on the Memorial Day cusp, right, for the last day of school and that day of post-planning. So just want to make sure that if you do that day, it just shifts everything one day closer to Memorial Day. I do want to take a moment to thank Mr. Pruitt. He does all the work behind the scenes and meets with the calendar committee, and really works hard to put the calendars together and think of really reasonable and high expectation options that will provide our staff and students with the best opportunities for success. So I do want to thank him for all of his work to put this together and to collaborate with me and the committee on best practices for future calendars, current calendars, but most importantly for our students, staff, and families.
All right, so Mr. Chair, for the members of the audience and there are people watching, at our offsite, I proposed a change to the calendar for this school year. So in the draft that we were talking about today, and in the coming school year's instructional calendar, we finished before Memorial Day. But in our current calendar, we do not. We have 2 days of instruction after Memorial Day. And we didn't have any hurricanes this year, so we have extra minutes, so to speak, that we could eliminate those 2 days as instructional days, and we would still meet all of our minimum minute requirements. For example, first semester this year only had 89 days. Second semester right now has 91. So if we were to cancel those last 2 days of the school year, we would still have 89 days in first semester and 89 days in second semester. So we have the minutes to spare. Now, it seems hypocritical that an educator would say, hey, let's cancel 2 days of school. But those last 2 days after Memorial Day are not prime educational opportunities. We checked, we had some days after Memorial Day last year in the calendar, and our attendance was more than 10% lower than on a regular school day. So, I asked the board at the offsite if they, would be interested in us pursuing eliminating those last 2 days of instruction. The board at the offsite said yes, but I just want to make sure, live and on television that we still have that direction. A couple of things to consider. We do have a lot of employees that only come to work when we have school. For example, bus drivers and cafeteria workers. We would still have them come to work those days. They wouldn't drive the routes, they wouldn't serve food, but we do training or some other activities with them on those days. So they would still be employed on those days, they'd still get paid on those days. So we're not going to short anybody work or pay. Some of the challenges we do have to overcome, though, is some of our employees and our community members rely on our schools as places to house their children during the day. So we might have to open up some before and after care sites so that, employees and community members who kind of rely on us for part of the day to supervise their children, that we offer those opportunities, and we can do that. And so we just want to make sure that the board gives us that direction. We will come up with a formal proposal to do that. It will require the board adjusting the current instructional calendar, so we would have to bring a modified calendar to you for approval probably at the next business meeting. So I just want to make sure that the board is still interested in that if they have any concerns.
I am, if you still have a thumbs up from me, I would like for us to vote on it as soon as possible, and I think even if we get it worked out and it's past our 7-day deadline, I would say just do whatever we can to get it on the 14th. Because the salary pay would be taken care of. To me, that aftercare or the childcare piece is the one that I'm the most concerned about. If we could do some kind of survey to say who's going to need it,
Right.
Especially of our staff who usually would not pay for childcare because their kids are in school, including teachers, IAs, whatever. But then also, as soon as we get this finalized, that we get the word out to our local child care centers, because some of them don't start their summer camps until the day after we're done. So they can prepare. They should give them enough time with a month and a half to prepare, but we get the word out as quickly as possible so everybody can make that adjustment. But I still think it would be a good idea.
It also will require an MOU with the unions because we're changing the work schedule. So all that to be worked out. All right.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next up, we have the school choice scholarship update. Ms. Harris and Dr. Mayer will present.
Good afternoon. We have, before Dr. Mayer starts to talk, I just have to take a moment because initially when the state offered a new scholarship program, it was new for all and, a lot of uncertainty. And I just want to recognize Dr. Mayer with some help from Heather Price at Brevard Virtual. They kind of talked through what billing families could look like and scholarship opportunities. But Dr. Mayer quickly built a very small team with the two ladies back there, and I just wanted to publicly recognize her for the efforts in making sure that we were doing everything right, following the statutory language, but also a model for other districts. So other districts routinely reach out to Dr. Mayer, and I just wanted to, before I turn it over to her, just publicly recognize the efforts.
Okay, in school choice, we're always looking at ways to serve our community in any way we can. So this was an opportunity for parents who choose scholarships to provide courses, whether through Brevard Virtual or through our brick and mortar schools. So we're looking at advancing those things. We did this year and then coming up next year. So the purpose of this is to show you the process we put in place to set this system up, go over what we offer, go over our successes this year, and go over what we're looking forward to next year. So to get this off the ground, Ms. Price with Brevard Virtual set us up as a vendor through Step Up. So that was our initial in, and then we as a group created our course catalog and a contract with Mr. Gibbs that was legally sound, that we actually relied on this year, that helped us in many ways. Then we built a website to inform the parents. We have attended homeschool events to try and spread the word. And then we created a focus application that helps parents choose the programs they want to be involved in and the schools they want to go to. So we offer elementary courses, secondary courses, AP courses, ACE courses, IB courses. So we offer a lot, and they're both virtual and in person. So our success this year is we served 78 students. At the time of making this PowerPoint, it was around February 13th, and we had accumulated 122,000, which that is already creating a profit for us at Brevard. But I checked with Ms. Kohler, and we're up to 149,000 as today. So I definitely want to highlight Ms. Kohler and Ms. Rodriguez here, because they are the backbone of this implementation, and it is running very smoothly. So I just wanted to give you a little quantitative data on how many scholarships we have in Brevard County. So we have a total of close to 16,000, and it is split up with 2 FES scholarships, UA, Unique Abilities, and EO. EO is used for families to take that money and attend private school. And then we have FTC, is Florida Tax Credit Scholarship, which is our PEP students. So the breakdown is there, but a total of close to 16,000 opportunities in this county. So our strategic next steps is to look to the board to approve the new course catalog, which includes a transportation piece and interventions. We also want to update the student registration form on Focus. We also are looking for you to approve the new contract, which has a piece about transportation. And then we're looking to promote this program. We have a homeschool event on April 25th in the community, but we also want to publicize it in any way we possibly can. Here's a little clip of our course catalog, but it is extensive and many pages. You do have it in your folder. And again, we added a transportation piece and interventions. That's about the only changes from last year to the next year. The next piece up for a proposal is Senate Bill 538 has went through the Senate right now, and it provides guidance for districts to charge for extracurricular. So there was a group of us that met, and we are proposing to charge $250 for high school sports sport per year, $125 per sport per year for middle school. This would only apply for 3 categories of students. The first one is our Florida Tax Credit Scholarship students, which we call PEP. The second one would be FES EO, the ones that receive the scholarship to attend private, and also private school students. Do you have any questions on what I presented?
Anybody want to go first? Mr. Thomas?
Quick question on the 140,000 that you cited. Was that net profit, or is that what the total income for the program was? The net profit?
So that is the money we accumulated from all of our scholarship students attending our classes. And looking at the person that runs its salary, we're making a profit already in the first year, so.
But that salary, part of that is coming out of the 140?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, we call it a profit, but basically it's going into the general fund
Yes.
to help pay for those teachers who are teaching the
Correct.
students. So it's not like profit. It's just money that's helping to pay for the program and generate funds to pay for teachers and other things that we're using for the general fund. So I think it's a great idea. First of all, if I recall, and remind me if I've got the right number, but I believe at the beginning of the school year, when I asked Ms. Lisinski how many, I think she told us at the beginning of the year, we only had like 21 students who are taking advantage of this opportunity. So that we're sitting here mid-second semester and we're at 78 without really having gone out and advertised it. And I know we're going to advertise the heck out of it moving forward, but it was a good baby steps start. Just kudos to all of you for growing that, because if we weren't doing it successfully, we wouldn't have grown that much in just since the beginning of the school year. So I think that shows a lot. I was surprised to learn yesterday in our conversation with you guys how many families are actually using their scholarship to pay for an entire day, which to me doesn't make sense, because I'm like, just come. But there's the way the scholarships are making, they still have money left over, you know, in most cases, and they can use that for it has to be for educational purposes, can't be for trips to Disney World anymore. But you know, they still have fund that they could use for other educational purposes. But I think this is great. I think the transportation, as long as it fits within our parameters, like we do, like if we have space, if it's a space where we're already stopping, I think that's a great idea. And offering interventions as we are able to. We don't obviously want to take people off task if we're having a hard time providing minutes to students who are BPS students that we're required to do that for. But if we have space, I'm assuming that the interventions piece will be like the transportation piece.
And I can speak to the intervention. That was a request because there is legislation for students that are working below grade level in the elementary setting that we provide intervention minutes. And so we did have requests from families saying, well, my child just goes there for reading per se. And what we started realizing is Brevard Public Schools invest quite significantly in intervention resources. And really, if they're choosing not to be a full-time student, that we needed to have an avenue that if we had space available, but if they were going to be using our resources, personnel and instructional materials, that we wanted to ensure that we were looking out for Brevard Public Schools investment that they had made. And so that's why those items were included, so that if a student is staying for intervention, that they are appropriately paying for those minutes and those resources.
Right, I think that's a fantastic idea, and I actually really like the idea of doing this for the extracurriculars for the athletics. I think because we use general fund to pay for the coaches and for the officials, you know, and if it's an expensive sport, they're going to be required to do fundraising anyway, but for the things that come out of general fund, like all the coaching fees, that comes out of general fund for right now, at least, depending on what this bill does. But I think that's a great idea. So kudos to everyone, and I'm really pleased with, and I'm excited about us advertising this and hopefully seeing even more parents take advantage of the things that we do best at BPS.
And we already have over 40 people on the wait list for next year. Not like wait list, but waiting to get
Waiting for us
scheduled.
to open the window?
Yes.
That's
Above
fantastic.
the kids we already have.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I think that's going to grow.
Yes.
I truly believe it. You guys are doing a great job. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to pick up is just be ready for the exponential growth, right? I mean, you know, it went from 20-something at the beginning to 78. Those 78 are going to be your biggest cheerleaders because they're going to see what we provide is excellent service. So, and you answered all my questions yesterday in our one-on-ones, which is great. Also, we talked about the athletics and paying for that and being able to participate, which is wonderful. But this is a big, I don't know if many people out there realize what such a big deal this is, or other parts of the country where they're saying they're losing kids, and we're just making, lemonade whenever other places are getting lemons out of this. So it is extremely exciting that you guys take advantage of this opportunity in providing the service for our citizens out there. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I just wanted to reiterate a lot of what my colleagues are saying, and that you guys have been doing a phenomenal job. We talked about this last year, putting it all together. Glad that it's moving. It's going to grow. I feel the more when I met with, because I do a lot of meetings with homeschool families, and one of the things that we found is that they want to be a part of the schools. But they also want that freedom of having their children back. And what we're seeing is that as we open up more opportunities, more extracurriculars, more sports, more everything, that drive to have them be a part of us in one way or another becomes more driven inside of them to do that. And it's all because of your guys' leadership and everything else, not only with the transition of allowing them to do it, but then Dr. Rendell's about offering the opportunities for sports and everything else. So thank you very much. I think, are you guys looking for any direction in here besides, because you got a majority for the cost of the charges for the athletics? Is there anything else that you needed?
The next thing we'll be recommending the updates in the catalog that will go before for board approval.
Okay. Just anything else if you needed right now? I just want to make sure you're covered. So thank you so much.
So I just have a couple of things to follow up on. I just want to make sure members of the audience and people watching, when they saw the fees for athletics, that is for students who are on scholarship or, have access to the vouchers. Our regular students will not be paying those fees.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure everybody, when they saw that, they don't think, oh, now we're going to start charging for sports. The students who aren't enrolled in our schools full-time that have access to the scholarship or the vouchers, yes, if they want to participate in extracurricular activities, they would have to pay that fee. And it would come out of their voucher or their scholarship. So,
And that's consistent with all the other activities that we have available for them. And it's consistent with them receiving revenue for these type of activities. That's what
correct. There are some
scholarships
other districts around the state that already do it.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
it's not anything that we're,
No. All right. You guys ready to do the aftercare? All right. I couldn't put, listen, I am your That's it. When you leave, I'm gonna send you every month a package of M&Ms for like 2 years. You just send me one. I'm gonna send it to your house. Let's set it up. I just got your phone number, so eventually I'll find out who you live.
Okay, before I get started, I definitely want to highlight Ms. Belletti and Ms. Hazelgrove here from Before and After Care. They are my coordinator, my assistant coordinator. They do a wonderful job providing support, leadership to our 57 sites that provide before and after care. So we're here today to ensure that we maintain our quality care for before and after care. So the first thing we're going to do is review our current offerings, then highlight areas of success, then show how we help the community and our employees, because it is a wonderful benefit for them, and then explain the need for a fee adjustment. So the things that we offer through Brevard Before and After Care are before and after care, grant programs where students attend and they get academic support, and summer camps. We also have enrichments for the year-round school, Challenger 7. So last year, we don't have final data for this year, so the data is based on last year. We served over 5,600 students in our general before and after care program, just under 1,000 during our summer program, just above 900 in our grant program. So we're serving quite a bit. We also offer paid enrichment activities where they play chess or they come for arts and crafts or they have karate classes. With that, Bass takes 18% as the revenue from those activities. We also have a Gold Key program. This is our safety program. We go out to each school site twice a year and ensure that they are safe. So when we go out and check, last year we had 6 schools that scored superior and 39 schools that maintained Gold Key. So these are great benefits for our families and community and our employees. We offer them before care, after care, or both. We also offer summer programs, paid enrichments, an annual program annual pass where they can buy 15 days and spread them throughout the year. We also offer for our employees the employee limited use where they can put their student there for 8 to 9 hours per week. We are guaranteed a 1 to 25 ratio to ensure that there's safety throughout our program. So we are coming today to propose a fee increase. But what we did before that was we polled 11 sites around the county that provide before and after care. So looking across this chart, the average registration fee at these 11 is $110. We right now only charge $25 and we're proposing the increase for $5, so $30 registration fee. That's not even 1/3 the price of everyone else on average. If you looked at before and after care combined, their average across the 11 is $117. We charge right now $70, so we're asking for an increase of $5 to be $75. And then the average summer program is $211 across these 11 sites, and we charge right now $113, and we're proposing for $118. Here's the breakdown of the fee increase. The second to last column shows the $5 increase across the board on every fee, other than the annual pass. And again, let me reiterate that annual pass is 15 days and you can spread them throughout the year. So they are going up $5 per day. But if you still divided that $325 price by the 15, you're looking at $21.67, which is much lower than our drop-in rate of $40. So the reason we're proposing this fee increase is there are rising costs with the snacks that we provide. We want to retain and recruit more staff so we can take more students off the wait lists at schools that do have a wait list. And we also have rising costs of any material that we use, whether they're games that we provide, paper, coloring books for the kids, crayons, all of that has rising costs in today's economy. So our 5-year goal is to increase the number of schools that offer our summer program Going into this summer here in 2026, we have 7 schools, and we would like to increase that in years to come. We also want to increase our paid enrichment activities so the kids have more fun activities during the BAS program. And we also want to decrease that number on the wait list because some schools fill up within the first 15 minutes that we open. So does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions, board? Anybody? Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, I think this is a good proposal. I know I was just visiting a school this morning, and she's not 15 minutes, but she said theirs fills up within 3 hours. So, and I know the limit is usually not space. I asked her, is it space? She said, no, we could probably take another 25 students. It's employees. And so whatever we can do, because the families really want to use this service, whatever we can do to expand, it helps the budget, but also it's really providing a great service to our families. So I am for all the increases and the opportunities, the summer camps. We're providing the millage paid ones that are like part day, but it's only just like 1 week. I think the interest is, the comments from what I've seen, the families really are interested in having things that they can send their kids to at a place that they already trust for the summer. So whatever we can do to expand that, I think is great.
Anybody else? No? We good? Thank you so much for putting this together. I truly appreciate you guys taking the time. The spreadsheet is pretty incredible unto itself. One of the things that I was part of the team that actually blocked the increase in charges for aftercare years ago. I felt like it was after we have a problem though in that we don't come back to it for years. So what ends up happening is that we have a system where we're like saying, no, we're not comfortable right now because families are dealing with a lot to increase it, but then it doesn't come back for years. And when it comes back, it's at a critical stage. I was going to ask the board in general, there's a couple of things. There's Brevard Aftercare, there's food services, there's other things that we are way behind the averages of other areas. Like we are lower than many of the competitors inside the district. I was going to ask the board if they would, what they feel about it. Not that we have to do it here, this is not the area to do it, but feel like a incremental raise, kind of like we do for the teachers, where every year, instead of the aftercare program coming back in 5 to 10 years and saying, hey, we need a raise because we don't even have enough money for snacks, there's an incremental raise that they can build their budgets on, that they can use for retention and recruitment, that they can do it. So, you can do it from, however we want to, but is there an interest in the board of them bringing back another recommendation for an incremental raise to get us to a certain place to be competitive with the rates and stuff like that? So, what do you guys think?
I think it would be based on needs. I mean, this is an enterprise fund source of income. We can make it as much as we want. We could go up to the average rate if we wanted to. I think it makes sense to come.
I was thinking like $1 or $2 a year, like just something
or
small
even next year come back and do another 5 and reevaluate. I mean, I always appreciate the way the district, whether it's food nutrition services or aftercare, that we try not to do too much too quickly, because families, even if it's just $5 a week, $5 a month, it's still, some families it can be significant costs. And of course, our lowest income schools, that 20th century program is free to them with tutoring and things provided. So those people are still taken care of. But I think it makes sense to just plan on, like Food Nutrition Services has done before. Why don't we plan on next year going up another 5, unless you guys come back to the board and say, we're good, we don't need it. But I think it makes sense to plan ahead. And then the most advanced warning we can give our families, hey, we're going to go up $5 this year. Next year it's going to be another 5. They can kind of plan for that.
If you could put together some kind of Mr. Thomas, did you have something to say?
My only comment is if it's at a level right now that's comfortable and we're not making a huge profit, but it's sustaining the program, that we don't, keep it relevant. If we're going to raise it, do it based on the cost of living.
Yeah. No, I agree
don't
with
randomly just throw out numbers just because it seems like we can get away with it.
What I was looking at is, when did we say that the last time the increase was?
Many years ago.
Ma'am,
No, how many years ago?
how many years ago? That's it. It's 2018.
Stephanie Archer's been gone, I believe, around.
Yeah, I remember it being 2018. So if you look at it, say we just said we wanted to increase it at the cost of living, whatever that is, $2 every year, or like you said, a $5 bump next year and then $2 after that. If you did that, it would be right about where it's needed to be from 2018. But when they come to us, they're like needing this money,
Right.
and it's like I hate doing budgets that way,
Right.
and they can't project their stuff that way. So if they know that there's a percentage coming every year, I would like to see something like that, if that's okay with you.
Well, not to mention, think about all the big raises we've given since 2018.
I know.
And that has had to come out of, their money comes out of this program. So if we didn't increase it, but they definitely had huge increases in cost because they had to pay all
Yeah.
their people. So we want to make sure that you're generating enough revenue to cover the raises. We know it's going to be 2% every year for the next couple of years. We definitely want to make sure that we get that covered, and we can kind of project. But I think that's a good idea to at least consider doing at least a 2-year incremental, so we can kind of get up to a safe place.
Get us bumped, and then a percentage after that.
And
if
everything
that's
else
okay.
they're paying for, the district is also, the program's not even, the district eats the electricity that's used and the water that's used and the security factors that are used. That comes out of the general fund. So when we talk about this program generating a profit and it goes back into the general fund, well, again, it's kind of like the profit conversation we had earlier. It's profit, but really it's supporting the general fund that we're paying for all those extra expenses out of, not just paying for the supplies and the employees. So it makes total sense for us to have an increase and make sure that we're healthy here and have room for growth.
Yep, and I think I also, just in general, board, what I'd like to do is kind of apply this to a couple other areas as we go through these presentations, because every year a group comes forward, right? So food services is going to be in front of us within the next 2 months, say, for instance. We give him the opportunity to do an incremental increase. We should go to that model. Is a lot better for our people, for budgeting, for a lot of other things. So they're not coming back bleeding, saying, please,
Right.
So I think you guys have done a great job. The aftercare program, like, our only problem is we can't find enough people. We have more kids than we have, and that's what's sad. So I'm hoping that this will help with retention and recruitment. And if there's anything I can do to help you guys out, go knock on some doors of some people that are sitting around. How about those people that are in the parking lot that park in our schools, that are out there like 2 hours ahead of time? They've got some time. Come on, help us out. You know what I mean? I'll hand out applications, man. You guys can come into the school and stop blocking our roads. You know what I mean? So, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Do you have that direction? So increase, yes.
We're gonna, I just want to be sure that we have this clear. We're going to increase for next school year by the 5. Are we then saying for the following, is
We're
that
increasing
the
another
board
5 the
directive?
next year, and then we're going to put together a CPI increase.
Yeah, I think it's a two-step process. One, you've got direction to
For
put this on a
26,
board
27.
agenda for this price increase for next year, and then come up with a proposal like for the following year, and then maybe down the road. Is it a percentage increase every year? Is it $5? Then to be revisited, but it's a two-step thing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. So, Mr. Susan, we have one more presentation, and I don't know if everybody needs a break or not.
You guys all good? Yep, let's take a 5-minute break. welcome back. We now have a presentation on K through 8 concept exploration process and will be presented by Sue Han, the Deputy Superintendent. You like that, don't you? Well, it's on my thing here. It says it. I know, but it's official.
Good afternoon,
Unofficially
everyone.
official.
So today I'm here with my facilities hat on, and I wanted to do some follow-up work from previous board work sessions, most specifically the one that we had on March the 10th, where we kind of talked about the follow-on actions and concepts that we want to continue to pursue as a result of the work that was initiated with WXY as our planning consultant about a year and a half ago. So for today's agenda, we're going to focus really on the K-8 conversion concept. I think that's the next area of analysis that I think will get us some good results for our students as well as for the district. And so we had a few sites that we had talked about on March 10th, and that included Stone, McNair, and Johnson that we thought we might explore. We do have a new planning consultant on our team. This is Perkins Eastman, and they're represented by Mr. Patrick Davis and Mr. Dow Wieberdink. How did I do? Pretty good? Okay, all right. And so the bulk of the presentation today will be about the services that they're proposing to provide. We're looking at a two-phased process. The first phase is what we're calling really a pre-scoping analysis, because it's really hard to look at these schools the same way. They all have unique needs, they all have unique situations, they all have unique communities. So as we look at the K-8 conversion possibilities, we really need to talk to the stakeholders that are engaged in that particular school and that particular community. So some of the strategies that we'll use are going to be completely different. And so we really need to kind of get a sense of what's the foundational concepts that we want to look at, and that's what's on deck right now. And so with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Davis and Mr. Wieberdink to kind of give you a little sense of where we'd like to go with our next set of work. I think I've gotten through that, so, okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for having us, and thank you for the opportunity to bring a little bit of color to the proposal that we shared. As a big team, I'm Douwe Wieberdink, as Sue very exactly shared, and I'm a planning lead. I'm very much focused on analytics. I would be the day-to-day communication person with the team.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. And I'm Patrick Davis. I'm a principal with the firm. So I lead our K-12 strategic planning practice across the country. My background is a little bit different. I actually used to work for a school district. I was a COO for a large school district, so certainly can understand the complexities of decisions like this, so able to bring that perspective. But as Dow mentioned, we're joined by a really large team. Obviously, this project like this can go a lot of different directions. So while we're showing a few faces here on the slide, we've got resources across the firm that we can pull in to support any direction that the projects may go. And we're also potentially supported, probably more so in phase 2 and subsequent work, with additional consultants that might be helping with engagement strategies. If there's any sort of financial analysis we want to do as part of the work, we've got a deep bench of team members to participate.
Yeah. So the project overview, there's really the three middle schools that we would be looking at. And could we expand them in K-8 schools? We actually, Dave and Karen actually share, like we walked the middle schools yesterday. It's actually quite different when you look at them. So each school, even though the charge is kind of like the same, they will probably have very different approaches. Because of the differences, because of the differences in the school, but also the feeder patterns. But within this project, we are really looking at the district's strategic priorities to focus on this enrollment stability between the various grades, and to improve and enhance the student experiences. We want to encourage student retention within Brevard County, but specifically within these three middle schools. And as I mentioned, they really have different approaches. The same approach, but might have different ways of looking at them. The pre-scoping study, we are envisioning a kind of 10-week time period. It could be a little bit accelerated if you would like, with initially really listening to the stakeholders.
listening to all of you, listening to the superintendent and his cabinet, and municipal leadership, really trying to understand. We can collect all the data that we want, but without that color, without the discussions around them, we will not really fully get a full picture of what we could do in the subsequent phases. Once we have that understanding, we'll look at enrollment analysis, and it's not just like each individual school. It will also be the combination. Some of the schools, when you looked at it, they might become very big. We don't know. We would really have to look at it, and within each of them, we will look at the challenges. What are we running into? Are there any red flags? Maybe within the pre-scoping studies, we are running into certain challenges that kind of like say, okay, maybe this is not the right moment for right now. We look at opportunities. What are the opportunities around the schools? And then we will probably come come up with some kind of sample education space program within, like a month and a half in of the project. We'll put that all in a report, bring it to you for further recommendations. But the idea is eventually to maybe have a look at one or two or three of those schools and say, well, how can we really explore this? Is this really feasible? And again, there's the numbers, but there's really the important part where we really want to understand from the stakeholders what those opportunities are and what the challenges are going to be.
Yeah, I would just sort of build on a little bit for that. Phase one, I think, is really sort of building that foundation of understanding from an internal perspective. As we think about potentially the phase two, understanding what are the guardrails, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, how do we effectively engage each school community so that their voice is really sort of baked into the sort of strategy development. So early phase, sort of phase one, is that sort of just building from district perspective, what are the range of opportunities that exist? Then we go to the broader community and sort of bring their voice into the process. So that, a lot of that would happen in phase two. And as I'll show here just in a second, we don't know what engagement looks like. I think one thing, as we'll sort of talk about over the next few slides, engagement looks very different from community to community. We want to work with you, we want to work with the leaders of the district, of the schools, to really understand what's the right approach for each school community. So we don't have a predefined idea of what engagement looks like. I think part of phase one is starting to map out what would an engagement strategy look like. So we are, really tailoring it to those school needs. So we've got a few more just quick slides, and obviously want to open up for questions. We just want to take this as an opportunity. It's our first time getting a chance to work with you all, so just quickly introduce the firm. So Perkins Eastman is a large planning and architecture firm. K-12 is actually our biggest, what we call practice area, the building type that we work with. Dow and I I work exclusively in K-12 around the country. We've been lucky enough to work with over 600 districts around the country and doing projects like this with over 50 districts. So as I mentioned, I have the privilege of running our planning practice for K-12. I think we actually probably specialize in larger, complex districts. So we worked all over the country, typically with larger districts, with a range of projects that go from capital planning to school consolidation studies to boundary studies, anything that can do with the built environment, how it's supporting the broader vision of the district. We've been lucky enough to support a lot of districts around the country. And again, typically specializing in the larger district, typically with a little more complexity to it than some of the more traditional districts you might find across the country. So I'm just going to go through, this is not meant to be a sort of marketing thing, it was really meant to sort of tee up sort of just a range of things we've done in terms of, and focusing specifically on engagement. Because again, engagement has varied dramatically from project to project, and even within the community, as you'll see here just in a second. But just sort of a starting point to introduce one project, which is Anne Arundel County, Maryland, which is essentially Annapolis, Maryland, if you know the capital, Maryland. But we helped them develop a long-range facility plan, help them develop a long-term capital plan and sort of replacement cycle for their buildings, a lot of financial analysis, building condition analysis. But from an engagement standpoint, I would say this was actually a district that the community is very sort of versed in digital tools and surveys, and they really sort of wanted to lean more on the digital side. And actually, we didn't do a ton of in-person engagement. So this is sort of the polar, one side of the engagement spectrum, which was let's rely on digital tools that families are familiar with. We created an interactive website, interactive tools where they could, go through a condition report, support, do surveys and leave comments. But this was a sort of, I would say, on one range, the most sort of digital side of the spectrum. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's sort of working with you to figure out the right mix, even within the district. Another one we've worked with is in Wisconsin, which is Milwaukee Public Schools. This, I would say, took a sort of a varied approach where we had, as you'll see here in a second, a series of tools and digital tools to inform people, but then also a lot of face-to-face conversations, small group meetings, workshops, things like that with the community. So we sort of spanned the range of engagement types. This was a district that, like a lot of places around the country, as you actually pointed to earlier, dealing with declining enrollment, they were thinking about school consolidation. So very difficult, conversations. But one of the things we did, which I thought was quite effective, was we created some interactive tools for people to, this was embedded in a public website where people could answer questions. This is going through pretty quickly, but these were sort of areas of the city that were considering potential consolidation scenario. So you can click on a school, learn about the conditions on that school, enrollment, building utilization, building condition, a lot of different metrics. But I think the really interesting thing was, people understand their communities a lot better than we do. They understand the very local, sort of hyper-local context that we may not always get. So users could go in and leave very specific geotagged comments. So for example, in this consolidation scenario, they wanted to say, hey, I'm really concerned about the safety of kids crossing the street if we're going to walk from this neighborhood to that neighborhood. So they could leave very specific comments that are tagged to a location. And then on the back end, we get all of the sort of where they're leaving comments, what the comments are. But then also, as we think about a broader engagement strategy, we're actually able to track, where people are clicking on a map. We can see who's actually engaging with the information. And what we found was there was actually parts of the city that were not engaging with these digital tools, right? So not everyone has the same digital literacy, access to materials and resources. So what we found was in the northern part of the district, actually people were barely engaging with information at all. So we actually differentiated our approach to engagement, had more face-to-face conversations in the north part of the city. So the digital tools not only help us get information out, but we can actually track who's potentially using them and really tailor our approach to support broad and sort of robust engagement as part of that process. Another example, Washington, D.C., we led a boundary study, sort of redrawing and policy initiative. This was a different approach where through the city we actually stood up a steering committee. So we had a set group of people that met with us on a monthly basis from a district-wide representation. And we had really sort of detailed conversations with them. But this was more of a committee-based engagement approach where different parts of the district were represented in the committee, and we had sort of roll up our sleeve workshop style. We met with them every month for about a year, going through a long sort of process from a policy and boundary perspective. So that's another sort of thing that we've done. And then I think the other thing that often we had a privilege, as Dowa mentioned, of walking the schools today, and I think often the school voice is maybe not always felt in a broad district-wide strategy, and obviously we're talking about very specific K-8 potential opportunities here. So a little bit different, but one of the things we did in Jefferson County, Colorado, which is a large district, which is basically the western side of Denver all the way into the Rocky Mountains, we wanted to make sure the principal voice came into the process in the school operator perspective. So again, we actually built, it's a large district, 146 schools, built some tools where they could actually give us their perspective on building conditions in this example. These are custom questions and tools and resources, but this one was very specifically, they can go in and tell us, where are they having issues with their building. So for example, if they have a roof leak, they can tell us very specifically where those roof leaks are. And all sorts of questions that they can help give us before we go out and assess the buildings and whatnot. We're armed with this information pre-assessments and pre-visits so that their voice is already factored into our thinking. We're aware of where the concern points are. And then we get interesting sort of outputs like this so we can start to see from their perspective, where are those. So I show these to sort of just give you a range of things that might be an opportunity. I want to really make it clear, we don't have a product. We're not a technology company. We actually build these from scratch. We build these tools to really sort of extend the work that we're able to do, extend our reach. But each one, as you can hopefully see, is very different in terms of approach. If we're to sort of lean and do some sort of digital component, we would work with you, we'd work with the leadership to figure out, in the school communities to figure out what is the right sort of mix of digital tools to get information out, but also collect information, but then also potentially balance that with more traditional engagement opportunities with in-person conversations. So this is really, almost more of the sort of just a teaser for what could be possible as we go through, if phase 2 becomes a reality. But again, I just want to sort of give you a range of things to get your brain moving a little bit in terms of what might be possible for here in Brevard. So again, these are not meant to say these are what we would do here, just examples of what we've done for other districts. So I'll turn it back to Sue.
Thank you. So where we are today is we would like to proceed with the phase 1 part of the study. The price for that scope of work is $45,500. We do have funds budgeted for this type of work that will be able to cover this piece. And so we think it's important to move forward with all 3 of them, just to kind of give us a range of possibilities because they are so different. And I think they all would be good pilot projects for this type of analysis. And so we'd like to move forward with that. And so that's our where we are today, and wanted to just get some feedback from all of you before we proceeded.
Ms. Hand, before we get into the engagement, you had mentioned that phase 1 is this, phase 2 is something that would come back after.
Yes,
and then
or
you said
phase-
there's a phase 3.
So the next phase, for example, if we went through this process, the 10-week process, and we come back with, we've met with the Stone community, and we think that there's an opportunity to rebuild Stone, and it's going to be approximately this big and located approximately here. These are some of the main concepts that came out of the initial stakeholder engagement. We would then build a phase 2 scope of work that includes some of the tools that you saw today, to bring in the larger community and then start to actually lay out the building design. So we'll need to make decisions like, how big is the school? If we took all the feeder chains that came into Stone, that school is huge. So we may have to make some adjustments as to, well, we might include parts of some of the elementary feeder chains, but then that has effects down the line on the elementary schools. So that's a much more detailed analysis, will take much more time, and will require much more community engagement that's much broader than just the small sites that we'll be looking at in the initial step.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Thomas.
Well, I'd just like to say I think all 3 are incredibly important. I know obviously Stone is close to my heart, being in my district. I appreciate the fact that you guys have gone out there, and I think that, having that hands-on community engagement and really getting a feel for the community is huge for this project as it pertains to all of them, really. And I'm just looking forward to seeing the results as this progresses, because I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, I just want to, really appreciate Dave and Karen for taking us around. It was really great to see the buildings actually in action with kids on it. Often we walk buildings in the summer where there's nobody in there. There's some great things happening in every single one of the schools, and it was just fantastic to see. As Dow mentioned, the building conditions, the building types are very different from school to school, so it'll be interesting to go through this process, both from a engagement perspective, as we think about that, but then also the solution set might be very different as we think about, what is that right mix for each individual school community to really sort of enhance that experiential aspect for students. So it'll be interesting to see. I actually kind of appreciate when things aren't as uniform and just you do the same thing, copy and paste. So it'll be great to sort of see the variation of opportunities that exist.
So just a question, so the 10 weeks-ish timeframe would mean you guys are coming back to us maybe June timeframe with the initial reports?
Yeah, I say up to, that's sort of what we planned, but as we shared, I think with Sue and Dave, if there's a desire to accelerate that, we can certainly work that in, but that's the base and sort of initial schedule.
Yeah. No, I want you guys to take your time. I originally, when we presented the 3, I know several of us were like, yes, Stone, yes, McNair, Johnson, maybe not so much. But actually thinking about it today, when we talk about different buildings, Stone is a unique building in our county. Yep. McNair, I believe, is a unique building in our county. Johnson is not.
Yep.
So, and even though every community is different, if we were to look at this, because it's one of the presidential schools, if we kind of come up with a building plus or minus, we know, okay, well, if a presidential school is not a good idea for a K-8, then we know that all the presidential schools, we could kind of answer that. So I actually am really excited now that we're able, under the budget amount, to go ahead and do all 3. I think that's probably a good idea to get that question answered. Is it even a possibility at a presidential school? So I think this is going to look forward to the updates. So community feedback, that would be in phase 2, right?
Yeah, broader,
The
large group.
outside VPS, okay, good. All right, yeah.
And Ms. Campbell, frankly, part of phase 1 is going to be trying to figure out who is the community for phase 2. right? So
That's
that'll
true.
be part of the conversation, like who do we need to reach out to make sure that we are getting that larger community perspective?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm excited to see what you guys bring back.
Gene?
Yeah, I'm excited to see the results. And again, Sue, if you have your thumbs up, then, and we do too. So that's how much confidence we have in you. So
Thank you.
you're working with a great team here, guys.
Oh,
So,
we know that already. Yeah.
And you'll,
Yeah, it's been very evident very quickly.
so we look forward to the results.
Thank you. Just had a couple of quick questions. So definitely on Johnson, no question. One of the things I was going to ask is you guys had a really cool tool. Like that was really cool what you guys were showing me. And I was wondering if part of the conversation is we're looking at stakeholders in the area and we're looking at municipal leaders, faith-based groups, like, the usuals. Is there an opportunity to use that tool for our possibly scholarship students that are on homeschool and private school and stuff like that to see what it would take to bring them into our conversation? Does that make sense, Ms. Moore? To just if they come into the system, because this is gonna be a broad-based thing. I'd like to try, and this is just a thought, can shoot me down for whatever. The idea is that in the competitive market, that's a whole subsect that we are trying to attract through scholarships and stuff that we just had a presentation on. It'd be nice to try to get some feedback from them. So if you guys would be willing to, I work with my homeschool families and stuff like that, we might be able to get some of their leaders to be a part of that group that talks about what would they need inside of our school to be able to be participate in something. If that's okay, I think that tool would be able to be used for that.
Yeah.
That's all.
So yes, Perkins Eastman is our general planning consultant, so we can use those tools for different scopes. I'm wearing my facilities hat, but I think, in terms of market research and things like that, there are other opportunities as well that we could stand up for sure.
I do feel in the Johnson area, there's a significant amount of opportunity to attract those individuals into our schools. And I think that with a new opportunity like a possible new build or anything like that, we might be able to attract them back. When you look at some of our schools that are in that area, there are some that are not performing at the rate competitively with the community. So I think it's an opportunity. I would just ask if that's possible. When you talk about the municipal leadership, you're talking about city managers, city council members, stuff like that, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think we'll have to find the right mix with Sue and who the right people are for those conversations.
I think prior to you guys going to engage with those, it said up there you're going to meet with the school board members. Ms. Campbell knows all of her community leaders that she would like to be a part of it. I think Mr. Thomas is too. Mr. Trent would too. If you could meet with us and we can kind of lay out, these are our people. I know that Sue and Dr. Rendell already meet with a lot of them, but just to make sure that none of them get cut out, that would be great.
For sure.
My other, and it might wait for a second, but we had talked, and it kind of sends staff a little bit out there, but Vieira has a high school or a middle school that is almost at max capacity, right? It'll hover okay for a while, and there's things we can do to minimize it. But we do have some elementary schools in Vieira that are not at max capacity. There might be an opportunity, and we've spoken about that in the past, to look at a K through 8 in the Vieira area, whether that's, Suntree, Ralph Williams, or Quest, because of the way that they're built and stuff like that might make it. Now, I know there's cost to that and stuff like that, but as we're moving forward, it's a whole lot easier to put a gym at an elementary school and call it a K-8 than building an entire middle school, you know what I mean? So something that we may want to look at as part of this package, maybe, just a 30,000-foot view, that's all.
Okay.
Try to go over so Vieira was built with like large rooms that could match it. They just don't have the capacity to build a gym on that property. But if you looked at Quest, looked at Suntree, we have the gym, the whole park next door, you look at Ralph Williams, there's enough there, opportunities to do stuff like that. You know what I mean? I don't know, I'm just talking. And then the last piece is phase 1, 2, and 3. You're looking today for us to approve the allocation for phase 1? Or do you need
Basically,
us to
the phase 1 project is within my procurement authority, so we can proceed if you all are pleased with the scope of work and the pricing.
Would it slow this? Look, the process is we want to get this done, right? Like there's no, like you hear Ms. Campbell, she's like, we don't want to hurry it in any way, but I didn't want you guys to be slowed down because you're like, okay, now we have to have another meeting and come back. And if your idea is that's the process you want, if you're looking for any more direction to say, we'll approve phase 2 or whatever, but you're saying just phase 1 today.
Just phase 1. I'll have to come back with phase 2. That's going to be well beyond my procurement authority.
Okay,
So,
okay. I
so
just
we'll
wanted
need to
make
come
sure.
back for that.
All right. I appreciate you guys for coming. I really do. Anytime we get to see Mr. Lindemann at a podium here, we really get excited. So, but I did want to say, and Karen, well, she has a high standard with me. She went through those rezones with me, and she came out really strong. But I did just want to say thank you to all you guys. Does any other board member have anything they want to mention? No, Dr. Rendell?
We do have a surprise presentation if we wrap this, if this one's done.
Are you serious?
I am 100% serious.
This is the
Yes.
most outside the box thing. I'm kind of excited here. I'm really glad about this, Dr. Rendell. You're actually going outside of a regular scheduled event, kind of like
Absolutely,
I met
stepping
with Matt
outside the
Susan
comfort
does.
zone, of course.
Can we ask that Lindemann's a part of the presentation in some way?
He can
shape, or
sit
form?
there. I don't know if he's going to be able to add anything, but.
All right, thank you. Would you like me to gavel this or wait for the
No,
presentation?
no, this is great. We'll
Okay.
just swap out. We're very fortunate to have 2 surprise guests with us here today, although it's not 100% surprise. They told me they were going to come and check out the lay of the land because they're going to come back at our second workshop in April to do a full presentation. So we're very fortunate to have 2 of our leaders from 2 of our robotics teams here today. Kirsten from Wingspan, which is Viera, and then Daniela from Voltage, which I believe is based out of Mile High. I had the honor and privilege to attend the regional robotics competition in Orlando 2 weeks ago. We had several teams from our schools there competing, and they did very well. I kind of thought I knew what robotics was, and kind of thought I knew. I was introduced to it over 20 years ago. It is much different now. It's much more intense, much more technologically advanced. And these 2 ladies lead their teams, so they wanted to share a little bit of information with you today, but we are going to do a full presentation with reps from some of the other teams in about a month. But the teams that we had competing in the Orlando Regional were Wingspan and Voltage, the Pink team, which is one of the ones that's been around for a while, the Bionic Tigers, right, and Horsepower. Did I miss anybody? Oh, Combat, of course, yeah. So they're just going to chat with you for a few minutes, but since they were here, I thought I'd give them the opportunity. And again, we're going to have a full presentation next month. All right. So there's a little button on the top. Pull it towards you. Yeah, so you'll slide.
She got it. If you can there you go. There you go. All right.
Okay. Just start off, my name's Kirsten. Like you said, I'm a Wingspan. I've been on the team. I'm a junior right now at Viera, so I've been on the team since my freshman year.
Hi, I'm Daniela. I'm a junior at Western Community Senior High School, and I'm captain of Team Voltage Grade 6. I started robotics when I was at West Mildred Elementary School for science in 5th grade, and I've continued my journey with robotics since then. So this is now my 6th year being actively involved with robotics teams.
Just to start off, I would like to ask you guys if you know what FIRST is.
I used to go to a lot of the competitions. I love it in Orlando and stuff like that. Yes, I do.
Okay. Are you guys familiar with it? Okay. So FIRST stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. Basically how it goes is there's a few different levels. It starts off really young. They have like a kindergarten level now and like elementary. So that's like FLL, First Lego League. Basically kids, they build like little Lego robots and they compete and they get a lot of like really good like basic skills and stuff. And then you have the next level, which is FTC, which stands for First Tech Challenge, and that's just a little bit more advanced, just a little bit bigger robot. And then you have FRC, which is what we are in, First Robotics Competition, and that's building pretty big, like 2 foot by 2 foot, 150 pound robots that go and compete on, like in arenas. So we were at the UCF Edition Arena 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So with that was an international regional. So we were competing against teams from Sweden, the Dominican Republic, Panama, and all across Florida. And we had huge success at the Orlando Regional. 4 of the Brevard teams went into the final brackets, which are the most competitive brackets of those competitions. Voltage was in the top 3 alliances. We were the 3rd highest alliance there at the competition. And Pink Team was one of the higher ones as well, Bionic Tigers, and Combat, right? And Combat.
Yeah.
So we're showcasing Brevard excellence at Orlando Regional. We are, these teams are looked at very highly among Florida teams and among international teams. And we're just looking to expand the support that goes towards these robotics programs.
Also, just like to let you know, first, we live on the Space Coast. First, robotics, it's building the future engineers. It's so much more than just engineering. Like, both of us run the business team, like operations, so we kind of do a lot more than just robots. We do business, branding, finance, all of that. So having support for FIRST and having more recognition and just like overall support for the teams is literally like building the future students so they can go succeed and build more.
Yeah, and something that's highlighted in the article that I wrote for the Roar, 80% of students who go through STEM programs in high school eventually will go on to work in the engineering or defense industries that we so highly seek on the Space Coast, and that's where a lot of our career opportunities are coming from. So in the next 5 to 10 years, we're all going to be looking for jobs, hopefully on the Space Coast, the defense industries, Northrop, Collins, Lockheed, all these big companies that you hear about. So investing in teams like Voltage, Wingspan is definitely going to help with that retainment of students on the Space Coast who want to eventually go into these companies. And something I'd like to mention is that both me and Kirsten are first leadership finalists. So that is representing students who excel in the FIRST program and in robotics. So Kirsten was actually a winner at Orlando Regional.
Thank you.
This is the part where you say, thank you, I beat everybody, I was the greatest. That's where you guys are too modest.
It was definitely an honor. So now I get to go to Worlds in
When is that?
Houston. It's the end of April. Yeah, so I'll be there on behalf of Brevard.
The end of April?
Yeah, end of April.
In Houston?
Yeah, it's in Houston.
Are they doing it at the Space Center or no?
No, it's
the
you've been
the George Brown Convention Center. So I represented Brevard last year as a first leadership finalist, and I got to meet students from all across the globe who are representing their respective districts, countries, and other areas of the world. And it was just an honor to be able to say that I was part of a Brevard team, and this is like what Brevard stands for. So I got to go to a banquet actually where I got to meet Chris Moore, the CEO of FIRST, and other members of those boards and chairs that go into the robotics programs across the world. And I can see the difference that being in these programs like FIRST has had on students. I personally started in FIRST Lego League in 5th grade at WMSS, where it's really cool with FIRST is that it starts with the software, the electrical, the mechanical, the business and entrepreneurship parts, and it continues into programs like FIRST Tech Challenge and FIRST Robotics Competition, where you build the concepts for playing with Legos and building a Lego robot that glides across the board. And now we're building 115-pound robots that are able to shoot these foam balls 6 feet in the air now into a hub that's kind of like slanted up. I think we could probably like show them.
Could you drop that off?
Yeah, so that is
I could
actually
use that during public comment.
we actually are hoping to have a demonstration when they come back at the April
That's
workshop.
fantastic.
Can you just, we all have, so I know Vieira, West Shore, where are the other schools at?
So we have Pink Team. They're out of Rockledge, but
Yep.
they actually work at Kennedy Space Center. That's where
Yeah.
they have 2 teams. They have Pinkzilla. Pinkzilla works out of Rockledge, so it's
that's
like their
Gene.
smaller
I'm
students.
So a
there.
lot of
But-
a lot of these teams
Our combo
are
team.
based out of one school, so to speak. Maybe that's where the sponsor
Yeah,
is.
people coming
But
from.
so, for example, the Pink Team has students from Rockledge, Merritt Island, and Cocoa Beach.
Is it
Mel
safe?
High. has participants in Voltage as well as West Shore, correct?
Yeah, so we actually have 7 high schools and homeschoolers now.
Right.
So we have Holy Trinity, Odyssey Charter, Heritage, Palm Bay Magnet, West Shore, Mel High, Homeschool, and I'm sure there's a couple others I'm forgetting.
The reason I was asking
Yeah.
is that it would be really cool if you just let us play with the robots. You guys all brought them, and we represent each one of them. So I could,
So
Viera,
maybe you can go to there and
West
practice a little
Shore.
bit before the demonstration.
listen,
There
just
we
let
go.
me have it. I'll
Right
Um,
next door.
Well, I know I wanted to say, Kirsten, I don't know if it was you, but there was a student from Vera who invited us to come, and,
Yeah,
and
it was me.
I was unfortunately not able to attend that weekend, but I thank you for the invitation because just letting us be aware, and I'm glad Dr. Rendell was able to go and represent because it's really exciting. I haven't been to a competition, but I know one of the years that Mel High was going, I got to see their robot, and they were talking about, it's been 2 or 3 years ago, that year, the job of the robot that they had to build was it was something similar to shooting baskets with the balls, but the robot actually had to distinguish like their color of ball. They didn't get points if they
Wow.
got the wrong color, so they had to get the ball,
There's some basketball
see
players
if
who
it
can't
was
do that.
there, right, and then shoot it. And I mean, so it's really complicated things we're asked to do. I'm super excited. First of all, we never have students on workshops ever.
Not like
that
it.
I can think of. So I'm super excited about you guys being here and coming back.
I just been glad Rendell let them come up. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, and I think part of what
You
this
can't
is
say no to them. They're
because I
leaders.
think there's an ask. There has been an ask. There was an ask in the email that we all got, and I think there's going to be ask coming in the future because it takes a lot of funding. It's mostly done by volunteer coaches and sponsors and things like that. We do have multi-schools. I know Dr. Rendell and I talked about it when there was a community member who was a volunteer coach asked about space.
Correct.
And I think we have some places in the county where we could potentially in the future set up like places, your practice runs that could stay there. So there's some things that we can do to help support you better. Some of it might be funding, some of it might just be space. And clearly we have lots of schools involved and students involved and a pathway to a future career. So, I'm sure when you guys come back, you're going to have your ask.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
So that's actually kind of like why we came here in the first place was obviously recognition and support is something we love. Like the students on the team, like on all the teams, we love being at the school and everything, but especially like in the past few years, it's become really, really difficult to be a school team because I understand there's regulations and there's rules that we have to follow, but so many of them have set us behind and set us not in the ideal position where it's made it a challenge where we've thought about should we pull away from the school, which that would suck because then we don't have the student. It's not
Talk
it's
about
not as
these
easy.
regulations.
So one of them.
For example, you have to have a teacher sponsor usually. And so if there's no teacher sponsor, if you can get a volunteer, but then we have to go through all the paperwork to get them cleared and that kind of thing. So, Wingspan lost their sponsor earlier this year. And so one of the parents stepped up to be the sponsor, but a volunteer. And so we had to go through paperwork and all that to get that cleared. So the idea is, there's many, many different ways we can support this. Number one is financially. Maybe we can, set aside some funds to support each of these teams, but also to make sure that we can clear any pathways, any obstacles to the pathways that they're trying to achieve. Maybe set up spaces, for them to meet and practice and equipment and that kind of thing. So, I think they're asking for some support, but also recognition again. We just talked about extracurriculars a little while ago, and we were thinking mostly of sports. But this is an extracurricular club that requires a lot of time and energy and devotion. And, we probably need to start treating it just like any of the other extracurriculars,
And just to give you guys a little background, I know it's different a little bit for every team. Wingspan, at least, we meet 5 days a week until the last one's there, but often it'll go to like 9:30, especially during build season. And that's a lot. And we also meet weekends. We have to go all the way to Voltage because luckily they have, they can set up a field in their cafeteria. We can't. We've been told we're not allowed to set up in the cafeteria because it was renovated. Yeah, it is new, which makes sense. But also, another thing, we first hosted it back
How long
in-
does it take you to set one up and break it down?
So it takes us an hour to set it up and then about 45, 50 minutes to break it down.
So you'd look to do it at night, like this is what you're saying, like you would break it up, set
It's
it up? and
yeah,
break
it's
it
like a
down?
weekend thing. So like if we could like get the cafeteria like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or even on a nightly.
But some of the times they do the practices together because they can learn from each other and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that every site needs to have a practice facility. We just need to make it so that they have access to a practice facility.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be at every school.
It's also hard for them to travel, so for her to pack up. I've seen their,
Yeah,
like,
so.
I used to go a lot with the First Robotics in the past, right? And I used to go to the competitions, and I used to see the way that you guys, I mean, those gears and tools.
It's a lot.
and- I mean, it's a lot to go to in another area. than
Sure.
everyone.
Yep.
And if they needed access to get it okayed at a school to get the cafeteria for a weekend, I think we could do that kind of stuff.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to say you guys are phenomenal. Not only are you guys great representatives of the robotics program, but you represent Brevard Public Schools better than anybody. I mean, you guys are awesome.
They're not
You,
even
you walk in here, you walk in here with confidence. And speaking of the school board, I mean, just you didn't skip a beat. You guys are amazing representatives, and I just want to congratulate you guys.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Something I would like to talk about actually is, and this is more of a radical idea, but I've seen school
We like radical.
districts implement it, and it's recognizing robotics as a kind of varsity sport. Obviously, varsity sports are very physical, but in terms of recognition, you see that there's lots of levels of recognition for those varsity sports. You see constant Instagram posts about them from these schools. They're a highlight of the school's pride. And that's something that I think robotics lacks right now, is that most schools, robotics is kind of an underground thing. I know for Voltage, Mr. Tom Gabler, who was the teacher sponsor for a very, very long time for that team, would recruit students into the team through his engineering program. And unless you were in the engineering program, you didn't really know about it because it wasn't a huge talk of the town kind of team. Now that we've expanded in the past 3 to 4 years with getting students from West Shore and all these other high schools, we're seeing so many students who are coming onto these teams and they want to be part of First Robotics. The problem is getting the word out. And I think part of that can be solved with that recognition, right? And with being a varsity sport, the idea would be that right now, how we have it is that there has to be a teacher sponsor for the team in order for us to even be in the building to meet. And that's caused us a lot of issues every year since Mr. Gabler left, with having to get a teacher who's just available to be there. And it has to be a teacher from the engineering building specifically. So we've had Mr. Johnson for the past 2 years and Dr. Wells at Mel High, who have been these teacher sponsors who are sacrificing their time. But we have 20 mentors on our team, and these are all volunteers. None of them are getting paid to do any of this. They want to be there. And the idea would be that as a sport designates a coach every season, and they are dedicated keys to the facilities that they need, we as robotics teams could have something similar. A coach or a volunteer who is already there, who wants to be there, who's passionate about this program, and they have access to the facilities that we need, such as the machine shop at Mel High and the cafeteria to set up our field.
So when does the season start? When does it end? When is the championships? Bring me up to speed on that.
Okay, so we have 2 seasons, off-season and build season. Off-season lasts from August to December, which is where we're doing a majority of our outreach events, business endeavors, engineering workshops. And so we meet Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m., and then we do occasional Saturdays every month. Now, build season is January up until the championship, which is normally mid-April, first week of May. And this year it falls like the last weekend of April leading into May.
Right. No, but there's seasons to
Two
it.
seasons.
She's raising
Yeah.
money in the fall, and then they're going to work in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we
Okay.
also like run through summer. I know not every team does it. Wingspan, at least, we do like outreach events during the summer. We go to the Brevard Zoo. We go to summer camps and that sort of stuff.
So when I was involved the last time, we were able to allocate, I think it was a certain amount of money for each program based upon how far they went into the playoffs, because to offset some of the costs. What is your total cost per build, so that when you guys are out there, so how much does it cost to run your team, and how much is it for your team?
So we have a budget of $100,000, and I want to explain what goes into those costs because I know that's a huge number to put up front.
It's not. It's what you guys cost. And so it's about roughly that for each program?
Yeah, so a lot of that is fundraising and sponsorships.
Yep, yep, they work hard for it,
For-
and I appreciate that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
For Wingspan, it's always been so if we had the money, $100,000 would be what we could have. I believe right now we have around 20,000 finances. Very difficult for us at least because, especially in the past few months, we have been locked out of our school money. So we have $6,000 right now that we still don't have access to, but hopefully.
I understand you're
be-
trying to
it'll
be
be-
the in-between. It's okay.
So, not to cut you off, Mr. Susan, but I think we're going to come back with a full presentation and a demonstration at the next workshop.
If you can
2
bring
workshops
we
from
can
now.
bring money.
If you can bring
Yeah.
forward your costs, if you can bring forward your idea of making it a sport, and then I had an in-depth conversation, but I'm getting the hook to move.
Yeah, correct.
I'd really like to talk about elementary, middle, and high school. We're bringing the Innovation Games to be an international event next year. And so in doing so, we've always wanted, since the inception of Innovation Games, to have some sort of a demonstration of robotics inside of it. And so if we're going to move to that, I would like to see how that fits. And if it is that we can create the sports and we can start it in elementary school, middle, and high, then you can build it to where when you get there, you have the volunteers, you have the money, you have the resources, you have the kids, because you're building the feeder patterns, the vertical integration. So I'd love to learn more about what you want to do to make it a sport. So I'll be quiet. Gene, you got something to say?
We already have the vertical integration. It starts in elementary school and so on.
Yeah,
So,
we did.
Yep.
Yeah, so,
But
but.
how we can expand it.
Actually, the Innovation Games would be a good time to showcase it because next year, the Innovation Games is going to be in the spring.
Yep.
In April, I believe, which would be, you guys would be building and being ready to compete. So it actually would line up pretty well.
You guys Vieira was working with Brazil, and the Brazilian team had mentioned that they would love to come next year. So the idea would be to have them come up. There's an Italian team, there's some other teams that want to come. So it would be nice.
Great.
And I'd also like to know every team that you beat, so that when you guys have those competitions, I want to know all of them so I can call those school boards and those organizations.
Well,
okay?
they work as a team with other teams.
No,
in
I'm not talking about each
competition.
other, but you guys, I want to
No,
hear
no,
if you guys
in-
beat Citrus County. Citrus County's one that I'd like to beat.
We'll explain it to you
Yes.
Okay.
because they
Looking
explained it to
forward.
me.
Oh, good.
So,
All right, you guys good?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out. Dr. Rendell, anything else?
no, I just was really impressed with all of our students that were participating over in Orlando. So when Kirsten reached out to see if they could come and speak at a workshop, I said, yeah. It was supposed to be the next in April. They were supposed to come today to just get the lay of the land, but I'm glad you got introduced to them. I'm glad they got to share, and we'll have a more formal presentation at
All right.
a future workshop.
Great.
Thank you,
Looking
guys.
forward to it.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. Yep. I'm not sure they'll let you drive the robot though, Mr. Susan, because
No.
What if I
it's a very
try to
expensive
build my
robot.
own? Thank you very much.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Meeting's
having
adjourned.
us.
Absolutely.